Hi, everybody. This is day 1548, and I'm really sorry that I'm burning the midnight oil. Um, I'm I'm working on a song about crazy Lalani Hart, and Mad Woman. So, yeah, it's not quite done yet, but we're working full time behind the scenes because today is 1548 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss, internal code red. And, so you're probably thinking, well, why Lalani? Well, Lalani is the decoy, right? She created the decoys to obstruct justice with Bob Moore, and it's serious. Um, so her um, smoke and mirrors, her decoy, her illusions, her lies. They're just lies, they're just fake. It's just smoke. It's just goo. It's just garbage. And, they used her. Bob Moore used her. El Paso Matters used her um, to be a decoy so that the public would be diverted from looking at Richard Halliday. Richard Halliday, who had information about the Walmart mass shooting, which you won't see. I'm hearing you're not going to see too much talk about that, which is um, also a dereliction of duty by the press to the people of El Paso. Um, the Walmart mass shooting is absolutely on the precipice of just breaking apart because we know we've been since December 2022, right? Was it? I need to look again. But I've been reporting for a long time on this podcast, on this broadcast every day that Patrick Crucius, the supposed mass shooter of the Walmart mass shooting, the lone shooter, I should say, the lone shooter, which, we know now. And it's very obvious, and there is so much evidence that he was not a lone shooter, that there are shooters at large. And this is why the media has now become derelict in their duty to investigate and to inform the public that the defense lawyers for Patrick Crucius are now on the precipice and finally have told the public 5 years later what we have been telling the public for years that Patrick Crucius has autism. He has a severe mental health condition, and no way could he ask any law enforcement officer, historic investigator, if somebody with that kind of condition could carry out um, going into a Walmart um, and, doing this mass shooting and 17 minutes later or whatever, going to an intersection with clean pants, clean shoes, clean shirt, no sweat, um, surrender to a Hispanic police officer when everyone is saying that he is a racist and he's doing this as a racist, but he in court, that's why they didn't want him to be brought into court at the beginning, because he said no, he wasn't a racist. And, so who wrote this manifesto? Who were the other shooters? Who were the group of security guards with M4s in the mall shooting? Who were those shooting in the mall? Um, and how is this connected to Fort Bliss? And we would know all this, but Richard was murdered. And we have information now that he had information about the Walmart mass shooting. And uh, in addition to his whistleblowing reports of the child trafficking, and Mayo Zambada, and I'm hoping I'm saying the name right, Mayo Zambada, Cartel, was arrested a few months back. Um, and it's interesting that his attorneys are connected to Richard Halliday, right? That his attorneys are connected to Richard Halliday. Um, when Richard was exposing the criminal activity that's connected with Fort Bliss and also with the Walmart mass shooting. And we know now that we understand why there was so much shaking, right? There was so much shaking at the meetings, why there was so much fear in the leaders' eyes, um, even the CID's eyes. And uh, 15 plus agencies were called together, um, and for Richard's case. The Walmart mass shooting, I think, had 5 agencies for the investigation of a mass shooting. I should get that article up for you. I think it's 5, no more than 5 agencies used for the Walmart mass shooting, but Richard's case had over 15. Okay, it's an international case. And I don't even think that Mayo Zambada's case has that many agencies um, looking into his criminal activity. And, so who murdered Richard? What was the group that murdered Richard? What were their connections? Of course, we know it's international, and um, we know that it is connected to Mayo Zambada, his attorneys. Um, we know uh, all these major things happening right now. We look at it and political things happening, and we look at the players, and we always ask ourselves, oh my gosh, should we look into these people? Because it seems like 15 plus agencies is pretty big case. It means that Richard's case is pretty wide and it encompasses many different players today that we see in the news. And, so it's, but I can confirm to you right now that the attorneys for Miles Zambada, his defense team, I should say it that way, is connected to Richard. And we also know, we have it confirmed, that the Juarez cartel um, is infiltrated in major departments. I'm trying to get the right word. Supplanted would be a good one. Supplanted, compromised, supplanted, infiltrated into the DA's office, Luis Rene Diaz, um, and connected to, of course, Arturo um, Alba, and uh, who is who was executed, killed, uh, however you want to say it, and Willie Moya. Also, I've been told he was executed, shot in the head. um, and then connected to Gustavo Sanchez of the DPS, the Texas Ranger that was assigned uh, to look into our safety because of targeting Richard and targeting Richard's investigation and targeting the criminal group that was harassing us, threatening us continuously. We reported all of that. We were assigned Gustavo Sanchez, and he failed to let us know that he had conflicts of interest, and that his family is very connected um, to the cartel. uh, then, of course, that came out because of this FBI being killed at El Paso Independent School District, and finding out that the chief is connected to Gustavo Sanchez. So that is Manny Shavira, and those connections there, um, and the cartel connections with Bliss Avenue. Then, of course, the chief medical examiner, Mario Raskin Ortiz, um, illegal. So we got the usurper, we've got infiltrators, we have got individuals that have no authority, that are have infiltrated our departments of criminal justice and law enforcement in El Paso County. This is huge because there is a criminal trafficking network operation that is going on. And, of course, doing research, you see that Wilfredo Moya, his operations were, of course, narcotics, the narcotics trafficking, going in, and, it was big money, big money. And, if you understand sanctification, that when you do something good, you're doing something good for somebody else that you might not even know that you've done something good for. And then that passes on, and that passes on, and that passes on, and all of a sudden, your little mustard seed of doing something a little bit good has grown into a big tree. This is the whole um, reality when it comes to sanctification, and why it's so important to do our duty, because we do not know the implications of that, the domino effect of that. And it's just so important. Well, it can work the other way when you do something evil. That evil spreads too, like a glob, like a slime, a slime, um, and that evil, and that's, I think that's what is a fear factor for so many people, because they use kind of illness as an example, and I don't want to use that. Evil begets evil, unless you have the grace of God, right? So there has absolutely been, in this family business, some real evil being passed on. And when you have uh, something that you might not think is too bad of a crime, like the narcotics trafficking, and a lot of families would disagree with that today because they have lost their loved ones to the fentanyl, um, and many families to other drugs. They would disagree. This is really when you lose your father, when you lose your uncle, when you lose a good worker, when you lose a loved one, a son, to drugs, and you do feel the domino effects of the evil. But it also generates into other crimes, because when you have this kind of money involved, you're going to need guns, and you're going to need ammunition for the guns. And so then you have the birth of the arms traffic, the weapons trafficking, the ammunition trafficking, and where better to get those weapons and the ammunition, but to get it from the arms rooms of the military. And in order to do that, you have to compromise the leadership. You have to compromise the leadership with, I guess, you bribe them, you give them money, or you pay them out, or whatever. Um, and our leadership on Fort Bliss has been compromised. And even worse, so bad, is that the guns and the ammunition and the narcotics trafficking have developed and grew into a real cancer. And now we have absolute the selling of humans. We're back to um, some place where we never thought we would ever be again, and that is human trafficking, selling human beings, um, grabbing them, snatching them out of their homes, out of their environments, um, and worse, and trafficking them. And in order to traffic them, you have to have a market, right? You have to have a place where you uh, attach a number to them, and that they become a product, and you have to find a buyer. And I believe that was on Fort Bliss at the Emergency Intake Center. I've talked to uh, nurses and also other people that know nurses and other security guards and such. And they said that those numbers, names with numbers, were written on their clothes or even on their body. And, this whole. I always thought, why are they bringing back this whole tattoo thing? I mean, that's nothing new in history. We have huge periods where everybody seems to be tattooed, and then it wanes, and then now it's back in a vengeance. And why are they, that's all kind of promoted. And if you didn't want it, you could tax tattoo parlors or whatever. Um, but to bring numbers back, I'm German. I'm very against any kind of tattoos because of using them as numbers on people, for hurting them, for hurting, meaning HERD, hurting them like cattle. And and now they're mostly dead, right? Now they're mostly dead. If not all of them are dead. And having that mark, um, and now to hear that these numbers were put on the children at the emergency intake center, um, hurting them, HERDING, and of course hurting them physically, mentally. And now they're mostly dead because, where did they go? They were trafficked. And, they put these numbers on them. If they put the numbers on them, then where are they? Right? And you saw that with General Mealy. All of the equipment that we have in the military have numbers too. We spend a lot of money on logistics and those that count beans. We call them, in the military. Well, when I was a spouse, it was all about bean counting, right? You gotta count the beans, and they knew where the medical equipment was. They knew where the weapons were. They knew where the vehicles were. The everything had a number, had a barcode, had a way to count the beans, right? And so for, just like the night vision goggles that were left behind in Afghanistan, why were they left behind? This is, you know, was our advantage with night vision. This was our advantage. Other people didn't have it. I don't think any other country had it. We had this night vision technology, and it was left behind in Afghanistan, and we no longer have that advantage. And those were all numbered. Those were all numbered, and um, why couldn't they bring them back, right? Why couldn't they bring them back? And my absolute belief, if they are so careless with the night vision goggles, if they're so careless with the big, I mean, there were helicopters, there were big pieces of equipment and weapons and everything left behind. And they're very careless with the children, and the emergency intake center, which, don't forget that crazy Lalani Hart, crazy confirmed convicted criminal Lalani Hart had Hart daycare, right? The family had Hart childcare. I think that's the exact name, Hart childcare. Trying to capitalize on what was going on because there was such a depletion in childcare workers when the emergency intake center came on, and even before then, even before. So I think that they were absolutely selling the children. If they're going to sell the children, right, who are now mostly dead for whatever reasons, for labor, for to mess with, um, in many different terrible, vile, vulgar ways, um, they wouldn't blink an eye selling our equipment. Um, and that means that our military has been compromised. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to witness to everyone, there is not a doubt in my mind after 4 years of going through this, meeting with the 15 plus agencies, being in the meetings with the command, and others, so many others, with the PAO, um, dealing with the PAO that is so dirty, right? The dirty PAO, dealing with the dirty CID, absolutely believing um, that they need to investigate NUSA, because uh, apparently the information we're getting is that he was assigned to Richard as a whistleblower and failed to disclose to Richard that he had conflicts of interest with the Hart family, that the Hart family were his family, that the suspects uh, that Richard was reporting on was his family. You know, eh, and not just his family, but that he was having sexual relations with Leilani Hart. Um, they had very intimate relationships, and he failed to let Richard know that. He failed to let us know that. The CID failed to let us know that. And it really, we absolutely understand why there was so much shaking. It was all guilt. It was so much guilt because they are compromised. They are compromised with the cartel group that are human trafficking, are criminally trafficking, so many things, and money laundering. There's always, when you're trafficking, you always have to money launder. And of course, then you have to have uh, warehouses, you have to have real estate, you have to have um, banks, you have to have um, the means to handle the money that the human trafficking industry right now is $10 billion a year. Okay, 10 billion is what I heard. $10 billion a year. It is ripe. It is for infiltration into our government departments. It is so ripe for bribes and supplantations, compromises, whatever you want to call it. Um, and, if you have the DA in your pocket, if you have the medical examiner in your pocket, if you have judges in your pocket, if you have the DPS in your pocket and the El Paso Police Department investigator in your pocket, if you have the El Paso Independent School District Chief of Police in your pocket, if you have, the ambassador in the Department of State to Mexico, to Chihuahua, Mexico, in your pocket, and they're all compromised with the cartel, and then they assign a defense lawyer um, to El Chapo, not El Chapo, um, to Zambada, Mayo Zambada, um, and that has a connection with Richard Halliday. Wowzer. And I want to talk about the article that, thank you so much, Team Find Richard Halliday, for sending that to us. That's very, very important because, um, uh, according to the article, the there's no trust left. They want classified the information to stay classified, right? Which means that this is a national security issue. That Mayo Zambada's case is a national security issue, like Richard's. And they want the information to stay classified, like they want Richard's information to stay classified. Um, and what they're saying is that the attorneys, the defense attorneys for Mayo Zambada, that they, from what we understand, and please correct me, is thank you so much, Nina. Blessings, Mrs. Halliday. Justice for Richard Halliday. Thank you so much. Absolutely. That the attorneys for Miles and Pada will have to go through a background check. Well, that's going to be interesting because the defense is connected to Richard. And yeah, I don't think that Miles and Pada is going to have much of a defense. That's what I'm thinking. So this is a very clever attack on the defense of Miles and Pada. So it's keep your eyes on that case. It's in New York right now, but this is all about El Paso. They wanted to remove it. Um, keep your eyes on the Walmart case because they want to bury the Walmart case. They want to end the Walmart case. And you see that with the defense of Patrick Crucius now, just now subpoenaing um, Loretta Lynn Hewitt, the lawyer that was working that case and quit, um, rejecting Bill Hicks's politics only case requirements for the Walmart mass shooting. Let's just make a lot of money off of it. 5 million here, 3 million there, 3 million there, 3 million there. Let's just make a lot of money off of it, and let's just don't do anything. She rejected that. She resigned in protest for saying that Bill Hicks is playing politics with the Walmart case. So that's really important for everyone to know, that now that the defense is pointing fingers at Bill Hicks, um, in that botched case allegation, and also that Patrick Crucius has autism. The whole Walmart case is on a precipice. It can fall real, real fast. And when that falls, that means that Richard's case will be with it, because those two cases are intertwined. It's like, they're cliff um, climbers, and they're connected with those climbing ropes together. Um, the Walmart mass shooting case and Richard's case are totally connected and intertwined, and so keep your eye on both of them. And when one falls, Richard's case has been broken. It's just the accountability and getting Richard's remains, um, which every day we get closer to that goal. So that is part of our goal. The other part of our goal is we see something very big happening here, and that is the exposing a huge criminal network inside the American government departments that are compromised by the cartel in Mexico. And it's a big deal because right now the cartel, it's out of control. There are beheadings all the time. There is women and children being hurt all the time. Um, the level of crime, the level of violence is just off the chart. It's a real war raging over there. And pray for them. Pray for Chihuahua, Mexico. Pray for Mexico. And it doesn't do us any good in the United States to have Mexico in such a bad and violent state. And so, yeah, um, one case falls, the other case will fall. And Richard's case is so big that I believe that he's a real hero. He exposed the cartels being supplanted in order to operate this multi-billion dollar trafficking network. And and he was murdered for it on Fort Bliss. So that means that the DES, Thomas Kane, was compromised. That means that an ogle of the CYS is compromised. That means that the command is compromised, and not just um, Patrick Matlock, but also Sean Bernabe, also James Eisenhower, and now General Taylor is compromised, um, and by a foreign entity, a foreign um, organization. And um, I was also, this is a good source, a very good source, and it our worries in the United States about uh, North Korea. Of course, our daughter lives in South Korea. We know about North Korea. About North Korea, about China, about Russia. My parents lived in Russia for 11 years, working in the American embassy there. I believe maybe it was 9 years. Um, um, yeah, uh, those worries about their threat on America is small compared to the Mexican cartel. Okay, the Mexican cartel is the largest threat to the United States. I firmly that I heard that, and I absolutely firmly believe that. The drugs pouring in, the open borders, uh, with whoever coming in, the criminals not being vetted. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad or whatever. They're not being vetted, right? And even Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, said the other day that the young nurse in Georgia, um, it could have been prevented. Her been prevented if the people coming over were vetted, right? Um, Looked into, and so you have the human trafficking, you have, of course, the weapons trafficking, and of course the drugs. But and then of course the money laundering that goes with that, and all the other stuff, There's so much, right? But in order to carry out those operations, they've got the resources. They have got the resources um, to to compromise, to infiltrate, to supplant into our departments and agencies, our government. And therefore, we're losing our um, our autonomy, our rights, our our country. And you know, it is a huge threat, the biggest threat. So if we lose our sovereignty as a country to a foreign organization that makes its money off of a criminal networking that hurts people any way you look at it, hurts the economy, hurts people. Um, because do they report all their wealth, paid their taxes? I mean, I guess maybe sales tax or whatever. I don't know. It's so because they devalue, their major property, so they don't have to pay as much property tax and all of that. That it's all for them. It's all a way to avoid law and order, And the point that I want to make is that we have seen it in our meetings. We have been in the meetings with the compromised um, individuals in the meetings. We have heard them, we have seen them, we have been there. And you know what? They don't look happy at all. They are afraid. They are nervous. Because in a world controlled by a criminal cartel network, there's factions. And those factions are not loyal to one another. And inside the factions, they're not loyal to one another. That is why Willie Moya was executed. That is why Arturo Alba and so many others um, lost their lives. They're not happy. They're not at peace. They're not at peace at all. And it even verges, and I said it over and over, it was like insanity. They're so afraid, they're so controlled that they can't even act sane. They can't even think clearly. It's just craziness and a lot of fear. And they're fearing for themselves, they're fearing for their immediate families, they're fearing for their jobs, they're fearing for everything. And it's not a good way to live. And um, Richard wasn't willing to live like that. And that's why he had so much bravery. Because he didn't have to live like that. And I saw it with Belen Rocha. I saw it with her mother. Her father didn't even, he was so much fear, he didn't even want to answer the phone for us, to us. There's so much fear there. And you look at Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, she's just a crazy mess. And Leilani Hart's last confession, she's just a crazy mess. Crazy mess. A crisis of lies. And the reason why you're in this crisis of lies, the only reason, is to cover up your of your guilt, of your criminal activities, and in Leilani Hart, her part in Richard's murder, her family's part in Richard's murder, and her part in the cartel. Her part in connection with the cartel. I should say that. And because it's really the mob, because in the information that we have, she was threatening people with her faction of the mob. So she's absolutely connected to it. And to live that way, like Belen so young, and grow up living in that kind of fear, it puts a new understanding on her statement to Richard when he was so brave. And she said, you're just so weird. You're just so weird. Because they live in fear. Real fear. I mean, the amount of absolute violent murders going on in Mexico right now is off the charts. And they're here too in this country. Because we have been supplanted. We have been compromised. We have been infiltrated. And our number one national security threat is the Mexican cartel with all of their factions. It's $10 billion industry business that they do, and they want to do it with impunity. They don't want to worry about our judicial system. And therefore, you have the magistrate court being illegal, right? Every case is botched. You have the DA office right now is a usurper. It's totally botched. And you have the DA, the rightful holdover DA, unwilling and in fear to live up to her oath of office and do her duty and prosecute until another eligible um, and properly installed, qualified DA can take her place. So, and then of course, when you have the chief medical examiner, another judicial officer, um, compromised, and then the DPS compromised, and El Paso Police Department compromised, and we have a national security threat just there in El Paso. Just there in El Paso. So I think that um, that is huge news. Please share this. Please share this with all the media. The media cannot stop talking about the Walmart mass shooting case. The media cannot stop talking about Richard Halliday's case. This needs to be all held accountable. And until they move these to trial, move these to accountability, we cannot stop talking about them. And there is an obstruction of justice. There is a lack of a breach of honest service. So why are we even paying our taxes? You see the chaos this is going to create, right? With the breach of honest service. So, the impersonating a governor, a government officer. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I can tell. So, God bless you guys for hanging in there with us and sharing this information. Pray for El Paso. It is in a security breach, national security threat situation, and they are absolutely trafficking children, marking them with numbers, treating them like they are a commodity, selling them, and they're mostly dead now. And we're talking about over 500,000 of them just in the last few years. So this is really important for everyone to share because we have, uh, really Richard has, and we have discovered what Richard knew. And, he's a hero. And this needs to be um, passed forward to anyone that um, that is in the media that can make this go viral. That's what needs to happen. So thank you, everyone. God bless you. And thank you for, Nina, thank you for your blessings. And I will be back